Welcome back to the Kudlow Report. I'm Larry Kudlow. At the top of this half hour, in an effort to reset the economic debate in Washington, House Republicans introduced a broad new pro-growth economic plan today. At its core, calling for a tax rate for businesses and individuals capped at 25% and removing regulatory burdens to boost jobs and stimulate economic recovery. I spoke exclusively with House Majority Leader Eric Cantor about the plan a short time ago. Please take a listen. Mr. Cantor, welcome back.
Larry, great to be with you.
Let me ask you, you put out this new growth agenda. A lot of people are asking why. Why today? Did it have anything to do with the Republican defeat in upstate New York, New York 26?
Larry, the truth is we've been talking about growth, about jobs and a recovering economy, the need for it since day one. In fact, January 2009, when the president presented his stimulus plan, we said no to more government spending and yes to small business job growth. And we've been talking about it ever since. And the fact is we've seen the choice now, and the choice is their way, which is more government or higher taxes, or ours, which is more growth and more jobs. So today we are recommitting ourselves to the pledge we made to America back last fall and to the work we've been doing since January of this year, which is saying, look, we need to get a government in which businesses and job creators can actually begin to grow again. And that means pulling back government regulation. That means fixing our tax code. That means promoting the ability for American manufacturers to expand in new markets abroad. We've got a lot of work to do, Larry, and that's because Washington has been standing in the way of growth, and we are redoubling ourselves in terms of the commitment we've made all along to make sure that growth is a subject here, because growth not only will help us balance our budget, it'll actually get people back to work.
Let me ask you, so you've got a lot of large tax cuts in there, and those look like supply-side tax cuts. What are you going to say to people, the skeptics and the critics who say we can't pay for the tax cuts, we can't afford the tax cuts, that we really have a deficit problem, even though GDP is out today only 1.8%? What do you say to the skeptics?
Larry, what we say is, you know, we're not against growth and more revenues, we're against higher taxes, because growth can actually fix the deficit. We are for making sure that we've got an environment for small businesses and entrepreneurs to begin to grow and hire again. That way we can see an increase in economic activity, and yes, it will produce an increase in revenues, but we will also see a reduction in the deficit, because as we know, the Congressional Budget Office says every percentage increase in GDP over the baseline produces trillions of dollars of new revenues. It's that simple. Grow the economy will help us manage down the deficit, and it'll help get people back to work.
What's your top tax rate going to be, Congressman?
Well, what we're looking to do is to bring the corporate and individual rates back down to 25%. We're going to do this in a way that gets rid of the preferences, gets Washington out of the business of picking winners and losers through the tax code, make the tax code flatter, fairer, and actually bring rates down for more people.
Is this a change in strategy? Let me ask you, are you going to promote this? You've got regulatory reforms, and you've got patent law reforms, and you've got free trade bills, in addition to the tax cuts you just mentioned. Is this a shift in Republican strategy? Will you downplay the Medicare, Mediscare argument and stay with the pro-growth tax cutting argument?
Larry, in our pledge to America last year, we said we were going to pursue a twofold strategy called cut and grow. Now, the cut's obvious, and we've been very focused on trying to get our fiscal house in order with the Ryan budget. And we believe that you've got to do that. But we also say that you can't do it with cuts alone. We've got to see America grow again. And all along, we have been on this two-track strategy. This is the growth strategy that we're continuing to promote, which we believe is part of the larger picture in which we can get the economy going again, get the country back on track, and get people back to work.
I mean, shouldn't we adopt as the national goal a 5% growth target, which is what it's going to take, according to calculations, to get us back on our long-run prosperity path? We're basically in a growth recession now, Congressman. What about a 5% national growth target, which, by the way, John F. Kennedy had when he launched his across-the-board tax cuts in the 1960s?
That is a fantastic goal. We're putting in place measures. We're cutting the tax rate. We're talking about rolling back the regulatory overreach in Washington, promoting a free trade agenda, promoting an innovation agenda so we can see innovation flourish and around which we can see businesses created and jobs created. We want to do all these things so we can reach that goal, as you say.
Let me ask you finally, you're one of the key players in the debt ceiling talks. There are a lot of reports today that Treasury man Tim Geithner says he can take $1 trillion in budget cuts. You're a key guy. What's up with the debt ceiling? Is it going to be increased? And how much in spending cuts do you reckon?
Well, you know, Larry, I am participating in the talks with Vice President Biden, and we meet twice a week for several hours each time. And I can tell you the talks are productive. We are seeing where we can cut, I think, over $1 trillion in spending thus far. And we're going to continue to try and do more because we've said all along that it is important for us to get the fiscal affairs of this country straight. And we all know Washington's got a spending problem, and that's what we're trying to address to show the American people that. The question is, Larry, the president's got to prove to us that he's willing to also join us in doing that.
Will it be a tax hike-free deal to increase the deficit ceiling?
We've drawn that line, Larry, and we've said we will not support tax increases. We believe the way to get this deficit straight is to cut spending and to grow the economy.
All right, we'll leave it there. Many, many thanks, House Majority Leader Eric Cantor. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you, Larry.